Hey there, it's Dr. Rutner again, and this is one more of our short videos looking at handling user input and dealing with it in our program. And in this one, what we are going to look at is we've got the same basic simple text input layout that we've been working with in some other videos, but we're going to do something a little bit differently here. We're going to see how we can code what is called an anonymous inner class to handle what we want the program to do when this click me button is clicked, when the user interacts with that button. And so the things that we want it to do, the logic that we're going to put behind that button is, again, very, very simple logic. We're just going to retrieve what the user types into the edit text area, and we're going to display it out to the text view. And that's just, like I say, keeping it real, real simple, proof of concept, to show how this basic functionality works. So let's go back to Android Studio, and I have got the same basic layout set up here as we saw on the screen previously and in the other videos, but I'm going to do all the work to respond to a button click in my Java file. So I don't have that onClick attribute set, and I don't need to, because all the work's going to happen over here in Java. Alright, so let me kind of get into the right place here, and I am going to put all of this code in my onCreate method. And there are two things I need to do. First of all, I need to create a button reference, and then secondly, I need to add an onClick listener to the button. Alright, now the reason I'm doing this in the onCreate method is so that when the app is actually rendered, it's got this button response functionality already set up. OnCreate runs when the app is created on your device, and so anything I put in here is going to be kind of part of that startup state of the app as it's running. Alright, so I'm going to first of all create a reference to my click me button, and then I'm going to retrieve the view using my find view by ID and looking in the resource folder for that click me button. Alright, hopefully that type of code is starting to get very familiar to you. I need to hit Alt-Enter to import my button class, and so that goes up in my list of import statements up here. And so what this gives me is a handle in my Java file that I can use to go manipulate that button that's created in the XML code. Alright, now the way I want to manipulate it is I'm going to add what is called an onClick listener to the button, and that's just telling my event handler to respond to this button click. But then I'm also going to go ahead and in the same line of code, I'm going to create the onClick listener. So I'm going to code the logic that I want to do when the button is clicked. So working through this, I'm going to start by using my button reference to call a method called setOnClickListener. I can start typing that in, and when it shows up in my code assist, I can just go ahead and hit enter and let the code assist complete that statement for me. Then in the argument for setOnClickListener, what I'm going to put here is this is where I'm going to start actually creating the anonymous inner class. And so I realize I did that very quickly. If you want, you can rewind and maybe watch it a little slower. But I started typing new view.onClickListener, and then as soon as it popped up the autocomplete, I just hit enter, and that put this whole structure in here for me. And so what's going on here is if you kind of, again, trace through what's going on with this code, this semicolon that you see right here is the end of the statement that starts with button.click or button.clickme.setOnClickListener. That's where that statement ends. This parenthesis that you see here, that is closing the parenthesis that started right up there for the arguments for the setOnClickListener method. So right there, this is where that button.clickMeSetOnClickListener method call ends. Now, what's going on here? This is where we're actually creating that listener. And so, like I say, all of this code was auto-generated for us. The listener contains a method called onClick, which accepts a view argument. And what we need to do, the additional code we need to write, is the code that will carry out the logic that we want to be executed when that button's actually clicked. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is a couple of things. First of all, I need to go ahead and create references for the edit text component and the text field component, or the text view component, because I'm going to be working with those. And then I need a line of code that's going to retrieve and store the user input, and then a line of code that's going to display the user input, and we'll say the stored user input, to the text view. Alright, and if that sounds familiar, if that sounds like what we did in the other demo, you're exactly right. It's the very same set of steps. And so the code that we're going to write here is actually going to be the same code as well. So I need to create, first of all, an edit text reference, and I'm calling it input view. And I need to cast the reference that I get to a text view, use find view by ID, and I'm going to retrieve text input. I'll do the same thing for my text view, which contains the output. Give it a reference. I need a cast to text view, and then find view by ID. And this time it's my text output. Alright, so really simple here what we're doing. Same basic code that we've already written. This is just creating references for us so that we can refer to those XML objects. Alright, then I'm going to first of all set up a string variable that's going to store that user input for me. And then I can use my input view reference to call the getText method that retrieves that user input, and then I have to use toString to convert it from just a bunch of characters to an actual string so I can store it in my string variable. Alright, and then finally what I'm going to do here is call the setText method on my output view, and that's going to take whatever I have stored in the string and display it back out to the user. And again, this block of code, everything that I put inside this onClick method, is exactly the same code I put inside the respond method in the other video. So same set of logical activities here, it's just the structure and the way we're setting it up is a little bit different. Alright, so let's go ahead and test it. So I'm going to run this on my Pixel. Let that Gradle build run. Go ahead and bring up my emulator here. Looks like our Gradle build is good. And here is our app. And so let me type in anonymous inner class. Hit that click me button, and I see my input displayed back out to me. Alright, so this code structure that we have set up is, if you can't tell from the hint that I gave you here, this is what we call an anonymous inner class. So really everything that I have highlighted in this Java code is a class. It's just that instead of giving it a class header, I went ahead and used the keyword new to create an instance of that class exactly where I needed it. And this is the kind of thing that is frequently used for event handling in Java, both in the Android world and when you're writing GUI desktop apps. And so it's something that's done fairly regularly. But as we showed in this video, we are able to accomplish the exact same set of tasks using an anonymous inner class as we were using by setting an on-click attribute and writing a customized method in the other video. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one here, and in the next video we'll actually kind of talk about best practices and when you might want to use each of these approaches. So see you then.